Last week, I explained a bit about digital revolution. The previous episode was about the Moore's Law. It was about Tim Berners-Lee, start of the internet, the start of the World Wide Web. And and all of this new technology explosion that we have in the late 20th century, since the 1970s and 80s, and the industry of personal computing. And then we have, connectivity. This also creates like an economic revolution. And it's useful to go with the framework from this Austrian economist called Joseph Schumpeter, who has this idea that creative destruction is this essential fact about capitalism. So he studied the history of capitalism over like many decades and centuries. And he observed that we had like different waves of innovation and entrepreneurship, where you had like a number of new innovators that came with new things. They destroyed old industries, and then a new industry came, and this happened again and again since the capitalism took root in the world. So first it was this wave of water power and textiles, and then in mid 19th century we had like a wave about coming from steam, rail, and steel. Then 1900s we had electricity and chemicals, and of course cars. Then the fourth wave was about petrochemicals, aviation, and electronics. And of course that one was not described by Schumpeter because he was already dead, but it continued the cycle. And then the last one we had was about digital network software, and this is the one we are going to focus a bit now. Maybe the big representative of this wave of economic disruption, of the innovation of our time, of the software revolution, is Marc Andreessen, who was the creator of web browser. I think it was the first web browser called Mosaic, and then I think it was renamed to Netscape. And after that, Marc Andreessen became a venture capitalist, and he has this very famous article that he published in the Wall Street Journal titled "Why Software is Eating the World." And his thesis in this article is that lots of activities that were previously done in an analogic world by people doing work starting to go to transform into software companies. So first one was not the first one, but one of important was the photographic industry. You can see how this creative destruction happened with the world of film cameras and films and digital cameras taking over. And see how fast actually the sales of digital cameras fall after people start switching to smartphones to take pictures. So it's easy to see how this evolved in the context of the number of photos taken in different formats. Then the newspapers, it was a steady growing industry that peaked around 2001, and then it kind of fell off a cliff, and we had then a new players like Google, like Facebook, making revenue based on digital platforms. Amazon starting to eat bookstores in the 90s and then early 2000s, and also e-commerce taking over most of the retail sales quite fast. And at some point, Amazon became as large as all of its competitors from the retail market together. Look, in 2016, it was already larger than Walmart, Target, and most of the other retailers. This is why Jeff Bezos, changed a bit his attitude from a guy who just was selling books to this like a kind of Bruce Willis of a retail that sold whatever he wanted. And then you also see this same pattern in the world of hotels. You had this idea of sharing economy applied to hotels. You had Airbnb taking over the hotel chains, and so you get the picture. So in the 1990s, late 1990s, we had this idea of the Web 1.0. What happens typically when a new technology comes is that it in the period of adoption, it kind of looks a bit like the previous wave of technology. So this is why Web 1.0 was a bit like when the internet started, when the computer science and the personal computing started, the way in which developers sought to organize information was through something that users would already know, that was like files and folders. So this is Windows in the early days. There was no need actually to use files and folders because for a computer it makes no difference. But for people to understand what's going on in a computer and what the computer does, it was like a good metaphor to think in terms of files and folders. A bit the Web 1.0 was the previous paradigm, but brought into online. So it was you had like a company, like a newspaper company that was doing the same newspaper as they did before with journalists, editors, and that. But instead of just putting it on paper, they would like put it online. But there was like a structured organization where you had the process worked more or less than as it was previously, right? So this was 1.0. And this is the new version of the newspaper industry, was very similar to the previous one, but online. And then came 2001, 9/11, and this was the where we saw something actually changing in the following sense. So I started my career working in online media. It was after the 9/11, but I got to interact with a lot of people who actually were in the newsroom on that day. It was in particular, I was working at a newspaper from Argentina called Clarín. These people, these editors, these journalists that were working on 9/11, they told me that something like the following. So they said, okay, 9/11 is a day where we could feel that something was changing in the information era. Because there was the attack on the Twin Towers, and then, journalists and media wanted to inform from there. But the problem is that, as you can imagine, the air traffic was closed. So, I mean, there was no way to send reporters to New York. So you could only make your news program with people who were already there. And what happened is that people, I mean, Argentinians who were casually like living in New York, or they were vacationing in New York, started like sending news of what was happening by email or by telephone to the editors of the newspaper, and then they would just upload it onto the website. So it was first time that at a massive scale the newspaper started to rely like heavily or almost exclusively on information created by citizens in order to produce the content for the website that they had. So this was the first. It was the first transition to something that would be called later like Web 2.0. What happened after 2001 and years later, so is that we also, because of the continuation of Moore's law, microchips, computing becomes faster, smaller, etc. We see this idea of context where smartphone users are everywhere. Everyone has a smartphone. Everyone has a small computer in their pocket. Even people who are quite poor. This is a photo taken in a favela from Brazil. It's a very poor neighborhood. And the interesting thing is that these kids, they have almost the same phone that the founder of Google has. There's not a really important difference in the power of their phone and the founder of Google. So it's like everyone has kind of access to similar technology because of how it becomes cheaper, because of Moore's law, etc. And also this means that people start spending more and more and more and more time online on different websites and interacting on the internet, right? So, and this put all together results in what we call Web 2.0, that was became like bigger in the mid 2000s, in 2005, 6, which meant the rise of the crowds into the online world. So Web 2.0 was about empowering people. It was about anyone can participate in the world economy. Anyone can be part. Anyone can have a blog. Anyone can reach with their ideas anywhere. Anyone in the world. The Time magazine at some point, I think it was 2005, put the person of the year was the internet. People who were online were the people who were the main characters of the information age, and this was also embedded in new models of information management, like Wikipedia and Encyclopedia, built on collective intelligence. It was not Encarta. Encarta was the old model of 1.0, the old model of traditional encyclopedias brought into the Web 1.0, because it was the same model to build the encyclopedia. It was just an encyclopedia that you could see online, but that was built by like a team of editors, writers, etc. Wikipedia brought a new model in the sense that anyone could contribute, and people were skeptical at the beginning, because how can you just make an encyclopedia based on any anonymous guy from the internet just contributing? And what Wikipedia showed us was that if you put together like a good mechanism, it can totally work. And it was clear at some point that people stopped using the old Encarta on the old Britannica encyclopedia, and they switched to this new model, because it was about getting the right mechanism. So some of the books that promoted this new way of living was very famous. Here Comes Everybody by Clay Shirky, Wikinomics by Don Tapscott and Anthony Williams. So, and others, like The Singularity is Near by Ray Kurzweil, and Abundance by Peter Diamandis. Both of them were the co-founders of Singularity University. So I would say the peak of the Silicon Valley transformation and the optimism about the future of the world, of the digital era, the internet connecting everyone, they create this university called Singularity University. It was an idea by these two gentlemen that I just mentioned, Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis, and they put this university into a place in Mountain View called NASA Ames. It was a NASA headquarters, and it was their goal was to bring together like innovators from different industries to have them like interact and maybe build innovative projects that would potentially be transformative for the future of the world. I was really lucky that I was picked in 2016 for spending there. Was there for 5 months. And here it's me, a young version of Federico. I was already working on dispute resolution, decentralized justice. This is what I went to do there. I took some pictures with the astronauts. I took some pictures with the space shuttle. This is the classroom where we used to spend our day. So we took lectures from like 9 a.m. to like 11 p.m. In this classroom with other 80 people from different countries doing innovation in biotechnology, nanotechnology, AI, blockchain, healthcare, water management, electricity. Well, you name it. There was someone who knew about some of those technologies. There was extremely highly competitive program, and this was all funded by Google. People did not pay to go to the program. If you were selected, Google would pay your stay there. So it was a really, really great place to be, and I got to play with really cool technologies. I built this little robot with my hands. I built and launched this little rocket. Played with like VR and also with brain and interface with tools. So this green thing you see there is like a little robot where you move it with your brain waves. And this is my graduation ceremony, and here I am between the two founders, Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis. This is my little diploma of Singularity. And what Singularity brought was a view of technology, I guess, very positive force for the world. It was the idea of so you put technology into something and it will be better, and it will, help us, and it will solve all the problems. And this was the spirit of the times. And when I was there, I was like, okay, we have seen this before. This is a bit also the ideas that we had, that humans had in the 19th century, when industrial revolution and then capitalism on the rise. And then there was this philosophy called positivism, founded by Auguste Comte, and it was about also technology, science, and progress, and view of an unlimited progress. And you could have I was also, like, as a teenager, a reader of like Jules Verne. So it was about this idea of these new technologies, flight, and also, this submarines and the age of exploration. And even Jules Verne has this book about going to the moon, which 19th century was really forward thinking. So it was a bit like that spirit that you could sense in the air in Silicon Valley in general, and also in Singularity, which was like as I call it sometimes, the Silicon Valley of Silicon Valley. And as you, but there was another phase into it. You have this painting by Seurat. You have people know mostly the one on the right, but Seurat painted this in a time that was also 19th century. So for some people, it was a time of progress, innovation, technology, and improvement. But there was, like, on the other side of the river, you had Seurat painted the other people who were like seeing the lucky ones from the poor side, the working class, and they didn't have so much fun as the rich had. And it was a bit what ended up happening later, after the Web 2 revolution became big and took over the world, because there was a bit of a broken promise of Silicon Valley. This guy you see on screen is Jaron Lanier. He wrote this book called Who Owns the Future, where he explains a bit disappointment and a bit also the broken promise of these technology platforms, big tech, that came to promise lots of things and didn't deliver on anything. Jaron Lanier uses a metaphor for these big tech companies. He called them Siren servers. Why Siren servers? Well, because you might remember Ulysses and the Sirens. Ulysses was coming back from Troy, and then he wants to go back to his hometown in Ithaca, and he goes with his sailors, and one of the challenges he has to overcome is this island where the Sirens lived, and the Sirens were these creatures that had this very beautiful voice, and they used to sing to attract the sailors, and then when they got close to the island, they would attack them and kill them and eat them. So Ulysses wanted to hear the sound of the Sirens, but not fall prey to not be killed. So what he did is he asked his sailors to tie him to the mast of the ship and put on them the wax in their ears so they would not listen to the song, and he would. And so this is the idea of why Jaron Lanier uses this metaphor for big tech, because he says that big tech companies are a bit like sirens, in the sense that they also have this song of seduction, of trying to bring us to their ecosystem with free stuff. Free products, free email, free content, and everything. At some point, well, when we are there, I mean, we are just eaten inside. So it's like, as I say in Silicon Valley, if you are not paying for the product, then it's because you are the product. And all of these Web2 platforms that promise to bring us this innovation and this access to the world did that, but at a very high cost, because they started to build huge companies that became almost global monopolies that connected different type of users. YouTube, you connect people who produce content with people who consume content. This is one of them. And then you have the intermediary collecting like big taxis. Then Uber has, drivers and passengers. And then you have this big platform that also collects, big fees for people who want to use the network. Well, Facebook at some point became so large that it was even hard to understand what it was connecting with what, because it covered so many different topics. So, but all of this Web2 economy was built on this this architecture of people or users on the sides, and a central server that owned or monopolized the network, and because of that privileged position could collect like high fees for itself. Okay, so this was a bit of the disappointment that was produced by Silicon Valley. And one thing that these companies learned quite fast is that if you take a job and you break it into small pieces, then you will get people to do it for free. This was one of the main discoveries that Silicon Valley did. And I mean, think of the Michelin guide that was published by this company, by Michelin, and then it used to be hired to contract, lots of writers to go to restaurants and then to write a review of the restaurant. And then these people would be, they would be making like middle-class jobs by being writers. So, but this was at some point like disrupted by this new model of Yelp, where you have a crowdsourced crowd that is going to make the reviews, and nobody is paid in Yelp. So that is how lots of jobs were destroyed. And then in the media, you used to have like people who were doing content, journalists, and etc. This was like replaced by people crowdsourcing content, posting content on these platforms, and then nobody was paid. So this also resulted in this situation of lots of new old jobs distracted by user-generated content that was not rewarded. This is why some people, for example, Metallica were against YouTube as they saw it as a devil, and it was destroying the record industry, where like artists would not be paid for their work. And all of these companies also had this dynamics. So they started being trying to get as many users as possible, like the Sirens, and trying to give you free stuff for you to go there. And after they reach network effects, they start to increase the fees, and they start to charge a few for the use. And they and you are like a bit of a prisoner, because all of the network effects are in that network, and you cannot go anywhere, because if you go to some other place, I mean, there's nobody there, so you have no other choice than just to pay these very high fees, or if you want to call them taxes, to these companies. And also, if you were to build a company or a product based on this network, I mean, at some point you could be disrupted because of a decision made by the company or the management. You could just lose access to the network because they just stopped the API or whatever. So this became, these big companies becoming like very, very big and very, very powerful in terms of the users and people who would build products on top of them. And the worst thing is that the traffic on the internet started to become like very concentrated into like a few big tech companies. So you used to have like lots of different little websites around, and then this consolidates into just a few big platforms, and this big platform becoming a bit like virtual empires, if you want to call them that way, because they start to do some of the activities that were previously done by, by nation states. For example, like if you are a user in Facebook or in Twitter or wherever they give you like an ID card. It's an identity for system for you. I mean, you have a profile in the platform, and this profile is like your ID in a country, and then you can use this profile as a kind of a passport to travel your way through the internet. And this is how you sign in with your passport issued by the Facebook empire. And also, of course, because of the algorithms, they control your feed, so they control what you read, and you control the content. They control the content you have access to. They even start to intermediate in like buy and sell, like marketplace transactions. And then at some point, they even thought about launching their own currency. And this is interesting because when Facebook started this project of Libra, their own cryptocurrency, they started to face like a very big opposition by the established actors, nation states. The US, they decided, okay, this is going too far, and so there was a big tension that is ultimately what resulted in like Facebook. Discontinuing this idea of their own currency, but it's because they became so large that you have this power struggle between the online and the offline worlds. At some point, people started thinking that Zuckerberg looked a bit more like a king than than as an entrepreneur, because he is like a lord of a big jurisdiction where millions of users work, live, and socialize. And he and the management team, they are like they make the rules, they appoint the moderators, so they make all of the decisions. So at some point, it's like a country, it's like a kingdom with an emperor who makes all of the decisions. And it's funny enough that Zuckerberg is like quite. He looks a lot like Philip IV from Spain. If you go to the Museo del Prado, you will see Philip IV. Lots of painting by Velázquez. So it's like a politically, it started to look a bit like big empires rather than just technology companies. Okay, we'll stop here for this episode, and for the next one we will have the rise of AI, and you will see that already looked like bad enough. When you put AI into it, it like looks like way worse, and almost the perfect storm. Okay.